We've been in this campaign for over a year now, and I just wanted to give you all a little recap video slapped together real quick just to jog your memories of what's going on. So let's go. So long before our adventure even started, before Chult even existed, there was a fight happening between the gods and the primordials. The primordials almost won when Dendar, the night serpent, ate the sun, but the gods ended up approaching Ubtao and had him betray Dendar. In return for this, the gods granted Ubtao the island of Chult and told him that they would leave him to his own devices there. Ubtao shaped the island, the people, and made what was known as his children, aka dinosaurs. He also made his holy city of Mesro, and that was to be ruled and protected by 7 chosen, meant to live forever, called the Beret. There are 2 beret that are relevant to our adventure, Alisanda and Raz Nisi. Mesro was not the only city on the island, however. A city called Omu sprang up in the south. It was built on rich veins of minerals and gems and prospered through commerce. Commerce led to wealth, and the wealth led to greed. The people of this city demanded offerings of the rest of the island and took slaves. Their actions angered Ubtao, and in his anger he abandoned the people of the island and removed his magics, refusing to interfere in mortal affairs there on out. The slaves revolted and Omu fell to ruin. With Ubtao gone, the city's lack of oversight drew the attention of primal spirits from the jungle who offered what power they could in exchange for veneration. The remaining people of the city made shrines dedicated to these trickster gods. Meanwhile, without Ubtao, the island as a whole fell into chaos. Tribes began battling with one another as Chult devolved into war. Seeing this growing hostility, Raznisi created an army of undead to protect the holy city of Mesro. He traveled the island with this army, wiping out all groups that he saw as hostile and threats to his city. His army grew with every victory as the undead amassed, and the rest of the Beret did not agree with Raznisi and his tactics. Eventually, the other Beret decided that Nisi's tactics were beneath them, and they didn't think his actions were truly protecting the city. Meanwhile, an adventurer named Artis Cimber somehow found his way into this holy city, where he met the Beret and eventually his wife Alisanda. Artis had acquired the Ring of Winter in his travels, which also stopped him from aging along with his wife. While Artis was away on a dangerous mission, the Beret panicked with the current state of Chult and created a demi-plane to transport the city and its people in order to protect them. The Beret decided Mesro would not return to Toril as long as Raznisi was still alive. More recently, a powerful lich, known and feared by many named Acerik, has traveled to the ruins of Omu. This is where your story begins. The group that would be known as the Astral Avengers made their way to Chult by ship. This journey ended with Aramag the dragon turtle crashing their ship and killing most of the crew. The party washed up on shore and made their way to Port Nanzaru. There they met with Harbor Master Zindar, who offered them gold in exchange for taking care of the island's growing pirate problem. They learned from a Zentarum contact that the pirates strangely did not attack Flaming Fist vessels. Then they met with one of the merchant princes of the port named Wakanga Otamu. At this meeting, they learned that there was a mysterious dark omen coming in the future, and that there was a legendary feathered dinosaur somewhere in the jungle. The party spent some time in the port meeting people and doing small missions to gain gold and connections. One of these missions involved the party retrieving Raznisi's prayer beads from a prince merchant's villa for a museum. The party then took part in a dinosaur race where Slurk raced and won with Nasty Boy before they headed to Fort Belluarian to meet their new guides Kawashe and Kupalue. On their way to this fort, they rescued a foreign ambassador from a powerful jungle spirit named Ulu Talong. They then arrived at Fort Belluarian, a fort run by the Flaming Fist and Commander Liara Porter. They met Shago, Kawashe, and Kupalue there as well. While killing some ghouls nearby for a quest, the group discovered their first Webway shrine and met Artis Cimber and Dragonbait. This duo told the group that they were headed to Oralunga to meet with a guardian Naga named Saja Mbaza and headed off into the jungle. The party discovered that Artis and Dragonbait were being tracked down by frost giants for unknown reasons. The party traveled back to Port Nanzaro through the webway, and in that travel, Eugene experienced a disturbing chill and saw ants and worms approaching him. At Port Nanzaru, the party was approached by Anit, an acolyte of Savras who was having visions of dark wizards in the Aldani Basin. They were also approached by Azaka Stormfang, a gritty woman seeking help to reclaim a family heirloom from Firefinger. The party bought some canoes and traveled south down the river into the jungle. Not long after then, they met Undril Silvertusk, cleric of the Order of the Gauntlet, tasked with meeting with the leader of Camp Vengeance downriver. She joined the party, and they first came across Camp Righteous, a place where the Order of the Gauntlet was stationed first, but were overrun with undead and forced to flee. The party investigated the statue of the man and the alligator, where they made their way through traps and obtained an alchemy jug, escaping just before the roof caved in. They were ambushed by a large group of zombies. The party defeated this group, but not before the undead killed Kawashe. The party then traveled further downriver to Camp Vengeance. This camp was home to a false hydra that was feeding on the members of the Order and meddling with their sight and memories. Upon investigating this hydra, Astral fell victim to it before being avenged by his party. Having completed her mission, Undril Silvertusk returned by canoe with some of her fellow faction members to Port Nanzaru. During this time, Mel was receiving visions of her brother Kino. The party neared the Aldani Basin where they met Marv, a follower of Kelmvor who was killed and mysteriously resurrected by the hag Nanny Pupu. The party traveled to her, killed some terrafolk for her, and went back to their mission. They then visited the heart of Ubtao, a floating piece of earth above the basin where they met Valindra Shadowmantle, a red wizard of Thay. She told them of some of the history of the island and revealed to them that a Sarek had come to Chult to plan something world-altering. She also showed them visions of Mel's brother Kino in the jungle and the possible future where Dendar was awakened and caused an age of darkness. The party found Kino's Black Rose camp and discovered that Anit was actually being lured here in order to be used as a focus in their ritual in an attempt to contact Dendar. A fight ensued where Mel convinced Kino to abandon his plan, and he sacrificed himself to stop the ritual and to save Anit. The party traveled back to Valindra, where Slurk learned there was a Grung village nearby, and the party had her teleport them to Orlunga. There, they solved some riddles in order to speak with Saja Mbaza, and she told them that Raznisi was still alive and he needed to be killed for the betterment of Chult. She also told them that there was royal blood of Omu still present in the form of a princess at Kirsabal. Upon exiting, they found that Artisimber and Dragonbait had a similar meeting with her, and they agreed to team up in order to defeat Raznisi. At this point, the party was shaken up by their latest travels and agreed to let Slurk choose the next destination. Slurk tracked down and killed some fearsome T-Rexes just before a red beam shot into the sky from the southern part of the island. They used a webway shrine near Orlunga to travel back to Port Nanzaru at this point, where they went into the Temple of Savras and met Father Matembe. He and his acolytes were in the process of studying the effects of the mysterious red beam and had only so far received visions of a jungle city far to the south, enclosed by cliffs and crawling with snakes. They also saw a black obelisk draped in vines. The party then met with Wakanga Atomu once again, who told them he had learned the following about the red beam. He learned 1. The souls of those on this plane that die are not traveling to the afterlife as they are intended, but instead are being funneled towards the south of the island. 2. Resurrection magic is no longer returning souls to their bodies. And 3. Those who have been resurrected in the past were slowly fading away as their soul was pulled from them. At the port, Balthazar learned from Zindar that Undril had taken a ship with the Order of the Gauntlet back to Baldur's Gate. Zindar also informed the party that he was pretty sure the pirates were held up in a cave hideout contained within Jahaka Bay. The party had a decision to make: tackle the pirate problem or help Azaka. They flipped a coin and decided to help Azaka. Balthazar received a love letter from Undril, and the party embarked on yet another journey down the river. The party arrived at Firefinger, climbed it, rescued a shackled Aarakocra, and fought the terrafolk there. They won and retrieved Azaka's mask for her. She vowed then on to help them in their journey. The party then decided to journey to Kirsabal next, as Saja and Baza advised them to. On their way, they encountered a hag in the form of an old tabaxi woman in disguise. This hag tricked the party into camping with her, where they found her spewing some sort of gas into Eugene's face before she grabbed a handful of his hair and fled. The party then arrived at Kirsabal. They met the Aarakocra, were thanked for saving one of their own, and were introduced to their elder Ashara, the Princess Maxinare, and the young Prince Na. Princess Max told the party about the ancient city of Omu and how she was meant to rule it and Chult. The Aarakocra believes she still could, and to unite the island under her, she needed a skull chalice of Chikagare that was still in Omu somewhere. She offered them gold and one of them to become her king if they could return it. The party was told they could gain the power of flight temporarily if they retrieved a black lotus from an old garden called Nangalore to the south. The party headed straight that way and found ruins of an old, beautiful garden now filled with petrified statues, graffiti, Iblis, and a once queen of Omu that has since been turned into a Medusa. They killed the Medusa, cut her head off, and took her black lotus, but not before artist Simber, Baltazar, and Mel were all turned to stone. The party dragged the petrified friends to a nearby Webway shrine and brought them back to the Temple of Savras, hoping they could be cured there. Father Matumbe told them they had a cleric coming from Baldur's Gate that could do it, but he would charge 2,000 gold pieces. The party decided to do the pirate quest in order to make enough money and were given a ship and a crew by Zindar. The party also met Mel's sister Jinx and one of the ship's crew, Kintor. They made their way to Jahaka Anchorage, infiltrated the pirates, killed most of them, and left with all of their ships and captain bounties. On their voyage back, Aramag the dragon turtle visited them once more and demanded tribute. They gave him gold and one of the pirate captains in exchange for safe passage. They returned to Port Nanzaru, received their gold, did some shopping, and cured their petrified friends. The party had found a sending stone on one of the captains. They spoke into it and discovered that the other side of the stone was in the possession of Commander Liara Porter, who seemed to be secretly teamed up with the pirates, telling them which ships to attack and which ones to ignore. Slurk used this information to blackmail her into giving him the other sending stone. Baltazar was overjoyed that the pirate captain that had left him honorless was now dead, and decided to travel to Baldur's Gate to meet once again with his love, Undril Silvertusk. Jinx died in a tragic bomb accident, and Mel carried around what was left of her in a bag. The party then went back to Kirsabal and received their temporary wings. They used it to scout out Omu and track down the King of Feathers. Slurk and his friends fought this legendary beast and won, but their allies Nasty Boy and Azaka were felled in this fight. Slurk and the party brought the head of the King of Feathers to Dungrung Long as a gift and proof of Slurk's strength and importance. The party successfully tricked the chief of the Grung village into believing he was visited by their god Nang Nang. Slurk received his ascension ritual and was turned gold, becoming a champion of Nang Nang. The party left Dungrunlong and headed south to Omu. Here, they discovered that Acerik had caused much death and destruction. They also learned that they must get 9 puzzle cubes from shrines to trickster gods, and were not alone in this city. There were Yuan Ti, red wizards, and they also met a translator named Orvex, who was left for dead after a fight. The party went shrine to shrine collecting cubes before being approached by the red wizards. These wizards told them they had better chances teaming up to collect the cubes, and the Yuan Ti were in possession of at least one in the underground lair. They also learned that Raz Nisi was the leader of the group of Yuan Ti and attempted to infiltrate the lair, but instead alerted all of them and had to fight for their lives. In the fight, Artis and Dragonbait were turned to stone, Alfie, Eugene, and Kintor were killed, Mel, Kupalue, and Orvex managed to escape, and Slurk and Marv were knocked unconscious and taken prisoner. We left off with them being taken to Raz Nisi, who now is half snake and seems to be dying. And now you're pretty much caught up. Now all that remains is to answer a few questions. What does Raz Nisi want with you? Why did he spare your lives? Will the party get the rest of the cubes? What allies and enemies will they meet? What is Acerik's purpose here in Omu? And can they stop this death curse that is plaguing the world?